So it's really important to understand that hurt does not equal harm. And actually, musculoskeletal pain is often not correlated with the amount of damage that you see across all different types of pain. So back pain, knee pain, osteoarthritis, shoulder pain, like rotator cuff abnormalities or hip pain, like across a lot of different body parts, we are seeing that pain is not a marker of damage. And so just want to highlight a couple of these findings, and there's a whole literature on this beyond what I'll talk about here. But a couple of findings. So for example, one study of hip osteoarthritis showed no correlation between pain and the amount of damage as seen on imaging. Another study looked at patients undergoing surgery for hip pain and found that 41 to 43% had a cartilage tear in the opposite hip, so the one that didn't have any pain at all. They were just looking, what if we open up the opposite hip, the one that we're not doing surgery on, what do we see? And they saw that actually there's damage even when there's no pain. Similarly, a study of shoulder damage showed that 96% of pain-free patients had rotator cuff abnormalities. So again, this is just, if you took a random person off the street who didn't have shoulder pain, we're talking about, almost like 100% of these people could still have that rotator cuff abnormality that, a person with shoulder pain who goes to their doctor might get told that's the cause of their pain. But actually we see those same abnormalities in people without pain. And then 78% of full thickness tears were again found in pain-free shoulders. This is a chart looking at a study of back pain and sort of imaging findings. Actually, this is people who didn't have any pain at all. But again, you can see by the age on the top, and then on the left column there is all these different things that we see as often cited as reasons why people have back pain. So things like disc degeneration or disc bulge or disc protrusion or annular fissure or facet degeneration. Or, and I never pronounce this one correctly, but spondylolisthesis. I never get that one right. It's a hard one. But these are, often things that we hear about as being the cause of back pain. But actually, if you look, these are pain-free people. And this is the rate of these images that you find, these damage images in pain-free people. So, especially as you get to middle age, we see a lot more of these things. But disc degeneration, even in, 20-year-olds, you're seeing 37% had disc degeneration. And these, again, are pain-free people. And this result has been replicated in other studies as well. So there's similar results were found in New England Journal of Medicine study that found that 64% of people had back damage despite being completely pain-free. So again, this is really just to show that, how separate these systems are. That musculoskeletal system that has, the tissues and any damage you might see is an entirely different system from the nervous system, which is the cause of pain. And so you can be reassured here that actually your pain is not, necessarily an indicator of damage. Somebody could be pulled off the street and have the same thing that's on your scans. That person could be pain-free and have the same exact experience in their tissues. So it's really not damage that's causing pain. And this is especially true, we're talking about chronic pain conditions here, which are brain-driven. They are driven by the brain getting stuck in this pain mode and continuing to produce pain, even in the absence of actual damage that's happening in the tissues of the body. So if it's not damage that's predicting pain, what is? And some of the things that we see predicting pain are things like nervous system markers, such as central sensitization, which is another big word that basically just means, how much your nervous system is active and sort of reactive to sensations and how much it's likely to produce pain based on different sensations it's experiencing. So how kind of primed it is to produce pain. We also find anxiety about pain or fears of pain are some of the most reliable indicators of who's going to develop chronic pain and who has pain persist. The more that the brain is kind of in a threat mode, the more likely it is to produce pain. So similarly, negative life events like having trauma, having financial difficulties also predict chronic pain. And really, again, this ties into the fact that when the nervous system feels threatened, it feels like there's some danger. It turns on pain, and when it feels there isn't danger, it's kind of safe. Then it turns off pain or doesn't produce it at all. So I think, like I mentioned before, I actually have had this experience of having pain in my back and having it, kind of react to that feeling of threat and then the later feeling of safety. So I had pain in my back that started out as it was an ache or soreness, and it increased kind of quickly to the point that it was pretty excruciating. Like walking was incredibly difficult. I was kind of bent over and like hunched over, and I could barely take a couple steps at a time. It was really, really terrible. And I'd had back pain before, actually, and usually it had gone away in a few days. But this time was much worse. And I was going through an especially stressful time. I had a lot of different responsibilities at work and in my personal life. And it really wasn't an option at this point to be this limited by pain. Like I actually had a work conference that I was going to, and, was just hobbling around the conference, just really feeling like I wish this pain would go away. So finally, when it wasn't going away after a few weeks, I got scared that there was something very wrong. So at that point, I did go to the doctor, and he told me that my symptoms were consistent with a pinched nerve and that it would heal on its own in a couple of months. So he said, your body can handle this, basically. So after that meeting, in 2 days, my pain was pretty much gone. I felt, something in my nervous system felt like it didn't need to be on edge. It didn't need to be producing this alarm, this pain alarm anymore. And it stopped it, basically. And what's so important to understand, again, is that this is separate from the musculoskeletal system, because the tissues of my back could not possibly have healed in that time. It's just that's not how it works. It's not possible that all of a sudden my pinched nerve was undone. And sure enough, a few days after that, I had the MRI scan that the doctor ordered. I thought, well, why not see what's going on? Like, it can't hurt, even though I wasn't having much pain at that time. And the scan actually showed that there was a large herniated disc that was causing the pinched nerve. So the damage was still there. I still had this kind of acute injury, just as the doctor predicted. There was damage in my tissues. And yet at this point, there was still no pain. It didn't have, the pain onset again. I didn't have it come back up, So what I saw was that the damage was there in my tissues, but my nervous system didn't see a cause for alarm, and so, did not produce pain again. And I had another call with the doctor, and he reiterated and reassured me, this is going to heal on its own. It's what we expected. So the doctor made me feel safe and like my body would be able to take care of what was wrong. My brain no longer felt threatened. I felt like I could heal just fine. But it's really how my brain interpreted the situation with my body that mattered. When I was feeling scared, and especially like, what's wrong with my body? It's not healing. Then I had pain. And when I was feeling like I shouldn't be in pain, this isn't good, that's also when I had a lot of pain as well. But then when I was feeling safe and like I was on track and like my body would heal, I didn't have any pain at all, despite having, this acute injury. And the truth is, I really didn't need to be scared. My back did heal just fine. But I think this really speaks to that, when the nervous system detects a threat, it's going to produce more pain. And when the nervous system feels safe, it's going to turn off pain. And it's really remarkable in this situation. This was an acute injury. With chronic pain, there's no ongoing damage. The body is really healed. Like we said, that the damage and the pain are not connected. Usually what happens with chronic pain is maybe something like you had a disc herniation or something that was acute at one point, or a different kind of injury. And then it persists because some amount of that fear is persisting, or there's something that's making the brain feel more threatened. And so a big part of healing from chronic pain is really helping that fear to be addressed, helping the nervous system to calm and feel safer.